I was scared, I'm not going to lie. It was a hell of an experience.
Dan Priestley was among 6 troopers with the UK's 1st Queen's Dragoon Guards, enjoying a few days of R&R in Las Vegas after training with the U.S. Army at the National Training Center in Fort Irwin, Nevada.
Get down! Get down!
When all of a sudden, they heard gunshots ring out Sunday night from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel onto the thousands of country music concert goers at the Route 91 Harvest Festival.
Let's go!
And then all of a sudden there's just people flying everywhere, and you just instinctively know there's something wrong. You need to get out there and help them.
The soldiers from the United Kingdom were not at the music festival, but they were in the area, and they rushed toward the mass chaos and terror to help.
Initially, we didn't really know what was going on, but due to the training that we, from when you first join the army to all the way to this point, we've had numerous casualty scenarios and that sort of stuff during our training, so we were pretty well prepared for what we were going into.
They immediately used their extensive military training to help the Las Vegas officials move people to safety and administer life-saving first aid.
Altogether I treated about 3 casualties there. So it ranged from one young girl, she got shot in the back, another one was shot in both legs, and then the last one was someone with a broken leg.
And although many are calling the UK soldiers heroes, they say they were just doing what they were trained to do.
I really feel for the families that have lost people, and I know that the whole world's watching and sending out their regards to them.
And first, the Queen's Dragoon Guards are actually the most experienced regiments in the Army. They've served in the Gulf War, also the Iraq War, and 3 deployments in Afghanistan. So it was nice that they were there to help out.
Such heroic efforts.
Yeah.
While terrified concert goers ran from the gunfire, some off-duty British soldiers, who'd just been on a night out, ran the other way.
It became apparent it was gunfire. At first we thought it was fireworks. We heard the noise and Trooper May said, "That's gunfire." I said, "Don't be silly, we're in Las Vegas, it's the last thing you can expect." But it became apparent what it was, because there's a lot of chaos, a lot of people running.
The Queen's Dragoon Guards have been training in the Mojave Desert. The trip to Las Vegas was supposed to be 3 days of rest and relaxation. They ended up dealing with battlefield injuries.
Yeah, it was definitely surreal. I mean, none of us have been to Afghan or Iraq or anything like that, so this is like the first time we've ever had to deal with anything like this before.
The girlfriend was like, "Oh, he's bleeding from his head, he's bleeding from his head, he's been shot." And he was still conscious at the time, and I went over to him and I had a look in his hair, and he had a hole in his head, just only like a small hole. But when I moved his hair back, just the amount of blood that was just pouring out, and at this time the medics hadn't arrived or anything, so it was a case of just putting pressure on, like just with your bare hands, and waiting for the medics or someone to come along with. I got some gauze in the end and just held it down until one of the first responders came and took him off to an ambulance. So that was definitely one of the worst.
It is a trip they will never forget.
And then approached a casualty who'd been shot in the lower left back, a gentleman. Applied a jumper, like an FFD, kept the right pressure on. After 3 to 4 minutes, he was saying it was hard for him to breathe. I kept the right pressure on still, said, reassured him, said it's going to be okay. Within a minute later, he sadly passed away. I was holding his hand at the time.
I think what helped us more was the fact that we just spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks out here doing the training in a sort of a training environment, and then for it to hit the fan, it just clicked. Everything seemed to sort of no thought of ourselves and just getting out there trying to help people as quick as we could and getting seen to. So yeah, but I think I'm quite proud of the way we all reacted.
The Army's recruiting slogan is "Be the Best." On Sunday night, as gunfire rang out, they were.
I'm a certified EMT in civilian world, and in the Air Force, I'm a 4.0. So a lot of the stuff that EMTs cannot do in civilian world, we can do on base, and we can do in a deployed setting.
I have an obsession with superheroes. When I was little, I wasn't one of the girls that wanted to be a princess and have a castle. I wanted to be Spider-Man or Superman, and I felt like in the real world, being a cop is the best way to get bad guys off the street.
My cousin is Jason Aldean's sound guy, so he gave us VIP tickets just for Sunday night, so we were with him the whole night.
I'm just in heaven because it's tech stuff, wire things, video walls, so he's excited that I'm excited to experience that.
Everybody was having a good time, and then we heard shots. The first, to me, the first 5 or 6 shots sounded like pop rocks. I looked back at her, and she immediately knew what it was.
I dropped to the ground because no question in my mind what that was.
So she told me to get down, so I kind of ran back to where she was. We were probably 20 feet apart at that point.
I remember, I think one of the things about it was you could hear a ting, ting, ting within it, which kind of sounded like a close fireworks, but that was actually, I don't know how many videos y'all have seen, but the video wall that I was literally 5 feet behind was the first thing that the bullets had made contact with.
Jason Aldean stopped when he realized, and he ran off the stage, and all the music stopped, the lights went off. And I think that's when the crowd started realizing, okay, something's a little off here. And then he started firing again. And then I think that's when most people realized that's gunshots, not to mention they were seeing people around them be shot.
Once we were down there and then Jason Aldean ran off stage, we're hunkered down, there's 5 of us. I'm still arguing with her cousin about that it is not fireworks.
I think he thought it was fireworks for the first 3 or 4 rounds. So we kind of made a little barrier with all of their big sound equipment boxes.
From my perspective, and what I know is we are the safest that we could be at that time. We had cover, we had concealment, and that was our best bet.
So his security people were kind of telling us which way to go. At one point they told us to exit off the right of the stage. We didn't think that was a good idea, so we said no. We ended up going to the left of the stage and pretty much falling off the stage and getting under the stage when he was done firing. And then there was a girl down there that had been shot.
And at that point, I'm not a medic. So it was, Logan, this is your job. What do you need me to do?
Kind of did a very quick trauma assessment, checked her pulse. She was very alert. She was answering all my questions.
So I got to be the flashlight lady. Had my cell phone, was doing it, and we elevated. I tried to help with both. She was instinctively, just take your shirts off. We need to make sure we prevent shock. We need to do this. She's asking her questions. She's doing all her assessments.
Then we got up to her head, and she had a rag covering the left side of her face. So I asked her to move that so that I could see. I was expecting to see a shard of glass or something. I didn't really think it was going to be as bad as it was. She had a baseball-sized hole in the left side of her face. She'd been shot directly in the left eye.
And at one point, I had to be listen, we're all you have, so you need to allow her to do her job.
So we picked her up and took her to where the cops had set up a triage area, and then they took her from us, and at that point, we didn't see her again. I think that if we weren't there, she could have lost consciousness. I think she definitely probably would have fallen asleep, and then nobody would have known.
One of the things that stuck out to me that night was at that place where they were taking everybody, seeing people that reunited with people that they had no idea if they were safe or if they were okay, and the madness was a beautiful thing to be able to see firsthand. The raw emotions of, hey, you're still alive, and we both made it here.
So it's just a process, it's a healing process that I think all 22,000 people are going through in different ways, in different days, in different phases. But in all, we're all going to do it together. And I think that's important for everybody to know.
I need people to be conscious that just because the rest of the world kept spinning and other people have moved on with their daily lives, that the people that were there, their lives will never be the same. And it's not something that has a time limit, and it's not something you can just ignore away.
So I don't really want people to treat me any differently. In my mind, I did my job. I did my job, one, as a medic, as an airman, but mostly as a human.
We have these programs in place to help you.
They've checked on me, they've texted me, they've called. They helped me get the number for Military One Source so I didn't have to worry about it on my own.
And I want people to focus on how everyone came together, how we took care of one another, how we, and not just us included, everyone there. There were people, military, non-military there, that you help your brother. And I definitely think that if we focus more on that and remember the positive out of it, then maybe this isn't just a horrible act that cannot affect change.
With the headlines from Air Force Radio News, I'm Airman First Class Korie Cutler. Following the mass shooting in Las Vegas, 7 Air Force medical personnel from Nellis Air Force Base responded by assisting at a local medical center. Major Charles Chesnut, an Air Force surgeon, shared his experience after he aided victims of the tragedy.
This is the type of thing that happens at Bagram or in Iraq or Syria, not Las Vegas, Nevada. We treated over 100 patients, most from gunshot wounds. Some patients were trampled. Everybody worked together down there. Nurses, medics, surgeons, both Air Force and civilian. One man did terrible things to almost 600 people, but as we've seen in the days following, hundreds of people have done amazing things.
Major Chesnut said just 2 days prior to the mass shooting, the 99th Medical Group held a mass casualty exercise in preparation for an air show. He said the training came in helpful while treating victims of the massacre. Those are your headlines. I'm Airman First Class Korie Cutler.
Something we would see in a war zone. Military surgeons on the wounds they treated in Las Vegas. As part of his summer training, Major Charles H. Chesnut III, an Air Force surgeon, practiced assembling mobile medical operations within 10 minutes of landing in a war zone to treat wounds from high-caliber bullets, shrapnel, and explosions. On Sunday night, in an unimaginable test for the 34-year-old doctor, Chesnut's neighbors here in the United States became his patients from the battlefield. The Las Vegas Strip shooting became the first time that Chesnut used his new training to treat multiple gunshot victims at the same time. Called SSgt surgical teams and finalized by the Air Force in July, the teams are designed to build off lessons learned by the U.S. military during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. After receiving a telephone alert about Stephen Paddock's rampage on Sunday night, Chesnut jumped into his car and drove to the University Medical Center of Southern Nevada as gunshot victims were streaming into the trauma center. What followed was one of the most hectic nights of Chesnut's military career, reflecting the warlike carnage that Paddock inflicted on concertgoers at a country music festival. "These are injuries I never expected to see stateside," said Chesnut, adding that he went through 40 pairs of sterile medical gowns just to treat the crush of patients. At the hospital, Chesnut was quickly joined by Lieutenant Colonel Jason A. Compton and 2 other military surgeons from Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. In an interview Wednesday evening, Chesnut and Compton recounted the frenzied scene at the hospital and how their war training made a difference. Paddock killed 58 people and wounded nearly 500 before he took his own life. The University Medical Center treated 104 patients. More than 80% of them had suffered gunshot wounds from high-caliber ammunition. The round struck victims with horrific force, causing severe damage to tissue and organs. "These were definitely injuries you would see in a war zone," said Compton, who is the General Surgery Flight Commander for the 99th Medical Group and has been deployed to U.S. military hospitals in Qatar twice. When Chesnut and Compton arrived at the University Medical Center shortly after midnight, the trauma center was packed with patients in urgent need of assessment. Crude tourniquets had been affixed onto many victims to control bleeding, but quick decisions had to be made to prevent fatal blood loss. And with hospital resources taxed by the influx of patients, Chesnut and Compton said their military training proved invaluable in helping to triage patients. The new Air Force mobile surgical teams, more nimble offshoots of military field hospitals, were redesigned by the Air Force this year so medical decisions could be made faster on the battlefield, according to Colonel Virginia A. Garner, the commander of the 99th Medical Group. Each team consists of a surgeon, an anesthesiologist, an emergency room physician, a critical care nurse, a scrub technician, and a medical administrator. One team can conduct 5 sterile, open-air operations. The team members are trained to react expeditiously under overwhelming circumstances, relying on their medical instincts to decide which patients can be stabilized quickly enough for evacuation to military hospitals. We use very little blood, no CT scanners, just ultrasounds and our clinical diagnostic skills, said Chesnut. So when I walked into that trauma resuscitation bay on Sunday night and Monday morning, I thought to myself, how would I treat these patients working in the middle of the desert in 5-man teams? Initially, Chesnut and Compton saw 20 to 30 patients, waiting for evaluation for what appeared to be gunshot wounds to their arms and legs. To move them along the treatment process, the two began helping other doctors check the victim's pulse rates. If pulse rates in damaged extremities differ from other parts of the body, that would be a sign that an amputation may be needed. No amputations ultimately were required, so the surgeons then began assessing for internal injuries. High-caliber weapons can leave deceptively small entrance wounds, said Compton. The hospital only has so many CT scanners, and you have a lot of people with extremity injuries. So who gets that precious CT scanner first? Said Compton, an 11-year veteran of the Air Force. The triage skills that we learned, training to go out on these small surgical teams, where even 5 or 6 patients and we could be overwhelmed, all helped us decide who gets that resource first. As the backlog of patients began to lessen, the Air Force surgeons began helping University Medical Center doctors care for even more critically wounded patients. Because Paddock had been firing from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, many bullets struck victims in the chest before smashing downward into the abdomen. That caused rare, severe wounds. The thing that struck me the most, which I did not expect to see, is the trajectory, Chesnut said. When gunshots enter through the chest and go through the abdomen, you have potentially catastrophic injuries because you can die from an injury to the chest and an injury to the abdomen. Chesnut and Compton also found it unusual that so many patients did not suffer exit wounds, considering the speed of the rounds. We found a lot of bullets, Chesnut said. Whether those bullets passed through another individual and ended up in our patients, it's impossible to say. The rounds also caused devastating injuries to arteries, Chesnut said. He recalled helping to put a chest tube into one young man. I have never seen so much blood pour out of anyone, the officer said, but we saved his life. About 9 hours after they arrived, Chesnut and Compton left the hospital Monday. Now they must carry the weight of the experience onto far more familiar grounds. Chesnut is leaving this weekend to take part in the Air Force's rescue mission in Puerto Rico. Compton is also preparing for deployment, but he could not say where for security reasons. When they arrive on their missions, both hope they will never see what they saw Sunday night. But if they do, they said, they will be even more prepared. Early Monday, Chesnut recalled having to tell a man who was huddled in the University Medical Center that his wife did not survive a gunshot wound to the head. Every surgeon has a graveyard in their mind of the patients that we have lost, and we use what we have learned from the patients that we lost to better care for patients in the future, he said.
At 10:08 p.m., I was asleep in my bed, as most of us were here in Las Vegas. I had to work the next day. About 11:30, the Air Combat Command emergency notification system alerted me that there was an active shooter situation down on the Las Vegas Strip.
Dr. Chesnut called me and said, hey, turn on the news.
The University Medical Center are treating the wounded.
He said, I talked with one of our other Air Force colleagues downtown. They need help. I said, let's go.
The scene at the hospital was controlled chaos. That's the best way to describe it.
Everyone that came in overnight, and it's gunshot wound, gunshot wound, gunshot wound, gunshot wound, gunshot wounds.
The injuries we saw were nothing that I ever expected to see here stateside. This is something we would see in a war zone. This is exactly like what we have seen in a war zone previously. We saw primarily patients that had injuries to the chest, the abdomen, unfortunately many gunshot wounds to the head. The extremities were some of the injuries that required the most labor-intensive work, determining whether that extremity was threatened, ischemic, going to potentially lose the limb, or whether they were going to bleed out from the extremity from their gunshot wounds.
The difference with a higher velocity, higher caliber weapon The bullet's traveling faster. There's a lot more area that gets injured, even though it may be a small hole. Inside, there's a larger area of injury. There's a larger area of cavitation that can cause injury. So it's something you have to kind of keep in the back of your mind, that you get in there and it may be a very small hole, but there's a larger injury pattern.
My name is Major Charles Chesnut, C-H-E-S-N-U-T. I'm a general surgeon and the Associate Program Director of the General Surgery Residency here at Nellis Air Force Base. On October 1st, 2017 at 10:08 p.m., I was asleep in my bed. Just like every Sunday before that. About an hour and a half later, I was awakened by the Air Combat Command emergency notification system simply saying, avoid downtown Las Vegas. There's an active shooter in the Strip. I did what the rest of us do for our news. I went to Twitter and Facebook and saw the catastrophic events that were unfolding, and I thought to myself, this is what we train for. I need to go help. Called my flight commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Compton. I said, sir, I'm going to go down and help. Are you coming with me? And he said, absolutely. So we head down there. On the way there, I encountered no fewer than 4 roadblocks by Las Vegas Metro Police. They did a great job securing the site. My wife's concern when I left was, what if there's more? What if they come to the hospital? I showed them my credentials as a surgeon, and they let me right through. I went in to trauma resus, the resuscitation bay at University Medical Center. I'd been there before. It was much busier than the last time I'd been there. And I found Dr. John Files, the chairman of surgery, and I said, sir, I'm here to help. What do you need me to do? At that time, it was about 2 hours after the incident had started. All the resuscitation bays were full. 6 patients in the operating room being operated on by trauma surgeons down there. So we went to work, doing what we're trained to do, what the Air Force trained us to do, what Penn State University trained me to do. Took care of trauma patients. I'll spare you the details of the patients because I don't think that's the story I want to tell here today. I want to tell the story of how everybody worked together down there. Nurses, medics, surgeons, both Air Force and civilian, internal medicine doctors, hospitalists, anesthesiologists, critical care doctors worked to take care of these patients, to do some good in the face of evil. We treated over 100 patients, most from gunshot wounds. Some patients were trampled. My part of that was probably no more than 30 patients, ranging from surgical procedures to end-of-life care, to supervising our residents in training, to getting glasses of water and holding patients' hands and helping them charge their cell phones so they could reach out to their family members who were afraid for their lives. I'm very proud to have the opportunity through the Air Force to work at University Medical Center in Southern Nevada. I'm also proud to be the program director of the Air Force side of the General Surgery Residency at UNLV. Our residents played a valuable part on the night of October 1st and on the follow-up for the 100 patients that were injured on October 2nd.
Is there any particular situation or story you'd like to highlight that might have personally touched you? Or
I think so. I talk about my training prepared me for this. The Air Force. I joined the Air Force to gain experience taking care of the traumatically injured patient in a mass casualty situation. My mentor at Penn State University was a trauma surgeon in the military. So following his footsteps, I joined the Air Force and was fortunate enough to be stationed here in Las Vegas, Nevada. But I never thought that I would see this type of mass casualty stateside. This is the type of thing that happens at Bagram or in Iraq or Syria, not Las Vegas, Nevada. Just here on Nellis Air Force Base, 2 days prior to this event, we had a mass casualty response training. It was in preparation for the Aviation Nation Air Show. That event was simulated 100 patients, mass casualty, coming into the 99th Medical Group, which eerily was almost the exact same number of patients we saw downtown at the only freestanding level 1 trauma center in Nevada. The training that we had on that Friday prior helped us immensely on the following Sunday night into Monday morning. The training I've had with the folks down in San Antonio, prepping me and my austere surgical team to function in mass casualty experiences in a deployed location was second to none. The training we get here to prepare us for this type of event is like nowhere else in the world. The Air Force contingency down there was 4. There were 4 general surgeons and trauma surgeons down there helping to take care of these patients. 3 active duty general surgery residents participated in the care of these patients. And the following morning, there were countless others from the Air Force Base and the 99th Medical Group that came out to assist. When I arrived, we sort of lost track of time, taking care of patients. There was the initial wave was finishing, and then it was cleanup. And then after that, about 3 a.m., the second wave came, where critically injured patients from smaller hospitals in the valley that weren't able to take care of the capacity that they had started sending people to us. All along, the trauma center was taking other trauma patients that had been injured from completely unrelated events or had been trampled trying to flee the event. By about 7 in the morning, things had really slowed down. We had 1 trauma transfer coming in about that time, and we met as a team, all the trauma surgeons that were there that night, the surgery residents and the incoming team, and talked about the patients. All of our patients that predated the incident that we still had to render care for moving forward and that evening, in addition to the new traumatically injured patients from the events of the evening of October 1st. So my day was pretty much a normal shift. I went in at 11, I went in about midnight and left about 8:30 in the morning. I hadn't slept the entire day before, except for about an hour that I got from the 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. when I woke up. But I went home, took a shower, and came back to work here at the 99th Med Group, continuing to do the things they need to do to take care of our active duty airmen and their families. The message that I want to send to the airmen here in the Air Force is that the doctors and nurses and medics that take care of you, we get these experiences in the civilian sector. Fortunately, places like here and our training keeps us ready to achieve the mission every day, operating on our active duty airmen and their families. And I think that it's an enormous privilege to be able to work with the SMART program downtown and UNLV. I'd also like to, the message I'd like to send to, I guess, the civilian population is centers like University Medical Center and the very close integration of military medical providers. It's a match made in heaven. It really is an awesome marriage of skills, mass casualty readiness skills, deployment experience, and the types of things that we don't always see in civilian medicine. And we're able to deliver that to the civilian population, to the taxpayers, who are also, our secondary mission. And I think the third message I'd like to send is to, future physicians, people in medical school. Think about the military as an option. I trained in a civilian medical school and a civilian residency at Penn State University. Joined the Air Force, and the experiences that I've gotten here and this experience is second to none. We have an Air Force residency program that is integrated with the UNLV surgery residency. And our surgery residents were there caring for these patients throughout the night and are currently caring for them. The experience they're going to get, they're going to be able to take on to care for active duty airmen and their families, both at home station and deployed. Many surgeons responded that evening. There were a couple surgeons on call and a couple that got called in. Of the total number of surgeons that were there, 4 of us were active duty Air Force officers. I know that 2 of us were able to help by taking patients to the operating room and save their lives. The additional things that were performed were bedside procedures. The biggest value I think that was added was the overall coordination of care. Patients were, as is understandable, all throughout the hospital, making sure that sick patients that in the setting of 1 or 2 patients may have gone directly to the operating room, but were categorized as less sick, less emergent, and needed to be followed up on regularly across multiple areas of the hospital, interface with the medicine physicians that were helping us, the emergency physicians that were helping us out. I think that we added surge capacity. We added an ability to triage in the mass casualty situation because some of us have done it before and all of us have trained on it as recently as 48 hours prior. I think military and civilian partnerships are of paramount importance. I think that, in my humble opinion, as a major in the United States Air Force, it's the only way to keep us ready to achieve the mission downrange. I don't think that, although I very much value my practice here on the Air Force Base, caring for active duty members, their family, and beneficiaries, we don't do trauma out here. We need to work in these civilian centers where we're seeing fast-paced trauma, cutting-edge, life-saving techniques, and doing it every day. We need to be immersed in this type of environment. This isn't the type of experience that you can have over the course of a few weeks just prior to going downrange and really be set up for success. So I think that the future of military medicine really are these civilian DoD, civilian military partnerships like we have here at Nellis Air Force Base. Our leadership has been awesome to work with the leadership of University Medical Center to allow us to really function just as one of their own, and University Medical Center leadership and Dr. John Files, the chairman of the Department of Surgery, and has really embraced us and embraced the military and the Air Force specifically and welcomed us with open arms to have full reign and work with his team and in his facility to care for these patients.
We got to the festival, heard the music, we're having a good time, listening to all the acts and artists and everything. So it was a pretty festive time. Like I said, we were enjoying ourselves, and up until the event, everything was peaceful, everyone had good vibes, it was really fun. At the beginning, there was a lot of confusion because we heard the first initial wave of shots, which we thought were like fireworks or firecrackers, and we looked in that direction and there was really no panic or worry. So then it stopped. About 10 seconds later, a second wave happened. That's when we noticed a crowd of people like all rushing toward us, like screaming, panic. That's when we made the move to get out of there. Definitely a shock, like an adrenaline rush. You hear the shots going off, the panic, the widespread, scramble everyone. It definitely was a surreal moment because you always hear about this stuff but never experience it. So to be in it when it happened was really like a surreal experience to be in, everything like that. Once everything kind of hit me what was going on is I positioned Morimoto to my left because I realized like, hey, this is my coworker, she's a mother of 2. I kind of put my back towards the sound, so God forbid anything come our way, I'll take the brunt of it to basically shield her. And then from there, we made the move to run away to the nearest exit that we could find and just get out of there. As we ran to my car, I started it and put the car in drive to get out of there. And then I noticed my back doors opened and complete strangers, about 5 of them, hopped in the back saying, hey, can we, ride with you to get us away from here? So I wasn't going to tell them no or turn them away. So I had everyone pile in and we drove down Tropicana to get as far away from the scene as possible. Definitely caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting it. But at the same time, with what was going on, I wasn't going to shoo them away or deny them help. So I said, sure, hop in, we'll take you as far away as we can and get you to safety. I'd say probably less than 3 minutes. Majority of the time just trying to bypass the crowd, and it's a huge herd of people trying to get through these small exits until we started hopping a couple fences and gates to get back to the parking lot. So I'd say from moment of like sounds, like gunshots, to us getting in the car was no less than 3 minutes. I'm sorry, no more than 3 minutes. A lot of confusion, panic, sadness. There was people with children there, with families, so they were making sure they were cradled, running to safety. So it was definitely a lot of mixed emotions and various feelings like being shown throughout the entire crowd. It hit me more so later in the night when I had a chance to really like lay down and decompress that these were total strangers I'd never met a day in my life, that I got to safety, that they all piled in my car. They were thanking us endlessly when we got to the destination, you know, away from the strip and everything. And it wasn't until I laid down that it really hit me that I helped complete strangers out of this whole panic. The first few thoughts were, it was like a complete 180. We went from having fun, listening to good music, Jason Aldean, you know, played some of his smash hits, to literally a split second later, widespread panic, you know, everyone crying, screaming out, like in confusion, what's going on, what's happening, to like, it was literally a change of the moment for everybody to go from fun and festive to panicking, worried, and crying. I would say in terms of special training, we have what's known as active shooter, which we usually take once a year or whenever we're set to deploy. So me having gone through that class, as soon as the instructor introduces themselves, the first thing they say is an active shooter can be random or premeditated. And we always think, God forbid, we don't want to be in that situation. So from the moment shots started firing, I kind of reverted back to that class where if you're in an active shooter situation, fight or flight, well, no one knew where the gunman was coming from. So it was flight at that moment to get out of there as fast as possible, make sure who I was with, it was safe and taken care of. And following the events, the strangers that we helped out, make sure they got to safety, they got out of there unharmed and safe. Panic, like you had multiple people on their phones contacting their family, their friends. It was just a lot of confusion going on at once. And then we had one lady whose phone had died, so Morimoto assisted her by letting her use her phone. She called her mother, crying uncontrollably, saying how much she loved her, that what had happened, and that she's safe and taken care of. And it was really a lot of confusion at one point, but Morimoto stepped in and kind of got control of everyone, told them, hey, I'm Morimoto, this is Wood, we're from the Air Force, so we got you guys taken care of and we're going to get you to safety. Not initially until I got home, but I actually had family call me the following morning because I'm from Maryland originally, so 3 hours ahead, it was about 3 a.m. their time, so they didn't hear until the news in the morning what had happened. But that morning I got plenty of phone calls, text messages directly from family asking about me, my whereabouts, if I'm safe. And I told them, like, hey, I was at that concert, but I'm good to go. I'm safe and sound, unharmed, and you guys have nothing to worry about. We saw what was going on around us. Like I said, the first initial round of fire sounded like we thought firecrackers. We thought someone just had fireworks going off, you know, to add to the festive moment. It wasn't until the second wave where we heard, like, excuse me, the crowd really shifting towards us, like in panic, saying like, oh my God, shots fired, what's going on, what's happening, that we really made the move to pick up and run. It was definitely unexpected, but I consider it outstanding because of how fast people were offering help, shelter, rides. And then the following day, people offering blood drives, you know, any assistance, whether it be water, food, supplies, just to these hospitals and centers offering the care to the people. So I really was surprised that Vegas being Vegas, how fast the community rallied together to really assist these victims.
It was pretty slow in the morning. Obviously, it's a Sunday. We got to the concert, and we kept going back and forth from the concert to a casino because there was a lot of acts that I didn't really know. So we went back for the last time to see Jason Aldean, and I'd say about 4 songs in or so is when the whole like script changed. Went from happy to pretty much fear and just a bunch of people running around. So I was just trying to get safety. I was making sure that me and Sergeant Wood, we were getting out of there so that way none of us would get injured. And then when we started heading to his car, that's when I thought, I can't get shot. Can't die today. I need to survive for my kids. So there was a lot of adrenaline rush going through me. Also, like when we got in the car is when kind of like hit me a little bit, to where I was like, we were actually just in an active shooter situation. And just like Sergeant Wood said, it's just you only hear about it on TV. So to actually be in it, it's pretty unreal. I actually felt really great about helping them, like shoving as many people as we could in the car, a total of 7 in a 5-passenger car. Yeah, we tried to get as many as we could in there to get out of there. So I'm pretty sure everyone was just as scared as everyone else. There was a lot of panic. There was a few civilians that were hyperventilating because of how intense the situation was. Frantic phone calls, making sure that their friends and or family members were safe. So, and the one civilian that didn't have her cell phone because it was her battery was dead, she asked to use mine so that way she could call her friends and her mom and make sure that she had a ride home. No conversation like that. We were just concentrated on what was happening in our moment, just making sure we got to where we needed to go. It was fairly close to where I think on the news it showed approximately where the initial shots were being fired, and it was really close to where we were actually standing. I actually initially heard like fireworks. I looked around, saw no signs of it. I heard it about 1 or 2 more times, and then that's when I looked back, because on the last time that I heard it, I felt something kick up on my legs, which I've come to the conclusion that it was the gravel from the ground. So I turned, looked to my my right, and I just saw this crowd of people just start slowly moving, and they just started rushing in my direction. So, and then I just started hearing screaming, and then I heard the continuous rounds from the active shooter. There was a worker there, like right at the gate where we exited, and they were just kind of like directing us to head out this way, saying, "Hurry up, let's go, get out of here, get out of here." So, actually, the night it happened, I didn't tell my parents because they had to wake up early. I didn't want them panicking and not concentrating on what they have to do. So, with my mom, she's a Clark County School District bus driver. I didn't want her to endanger any more children with her worrying about her own. So I didn't tell her. I didn't tell my dad. He works with heavy machines because he's a mechanic. So, but they eventually found out the next day. Everyone who found out about what me and Sergeant Wood had gone through, they kept saying, and everyone that has talked to me, they said that there's always a listening ear. We're always here for you. If you need anything, I'm here, let me know. I think it was when I started hearing the actual gunfire, and I heard which direction it was coming from. So that's why I knew to run away from it. There's no sign of any active shooter on the ground, so it's still surreal to me. Like, it hasn't fully hit me yet. So, but I noticed that my attitude's a little bit different, so I was thinking about going to mental health and talking to them.
We woke up as we were staying at the Hooters Hotel. It's the 3rd day of the Route 91 Harvest Fest. We were expecting to go out, have a grand old time with it being the last day. The lineup was incredible for that day, so after we got ready to go, we walked from the Hooters Hotel over to the Route 91 Harvest Fest concert ground. So I was to the left of the stage a little bit and back a little bit, and then so when I first heard that first rounds, I was sitting there, and I know Jason Aldean likes to use pyrotechnics, and so a bunch of us were kind of looking like it might have been a malfunction, or someone could have been just being trying to play a prank on the outside of the concerts with firecrackers or something, because it didn't register that it was weapons or firing at us or anything. But then once the second rounds started coming in, and you saw Jason Aldean just sprint off stage, I knew something was up that wasn't right, and I started just backpedaling, slowly making my way away from the stage and away from the big crowd, and looking around for what I could articulate was going on. It was so the first rounds went off, and like Jason Aldean had quit singing and just kind of stood there. Then the second rounds went off, and that's when I saw a few people get fatally shot with rounds, and then that's when I knew like Jason Aldean had run off stage already. I knew that there was an active shooter. I didn't know where it was coming from. I just knew it was coming from the west. So that's why I started making my way east towards a gate over in that direction. And like I had no idea it was coming from up above, so I was kind of looking on the ground to see if I could locate anyone that had a weapon or anything like that. Yeah, I thought it was someone made their way, somehow got onto the concert grounds and had a bunch of weapons. I thought it could have been multiple people. I just didn't really know at the time, so I was just constantly surveying around trying to figure out where it was coming from, so I didn't end up walking myself into a worse situation. Once I realized there was an active shooter, there's a lot of people who just panicked and got in pretty much the fetal position on the ground, and I was just trying to get as many people as I could, waving them just to run past me and run away from it, because I knew the rounds were coming from the west. So I said, trying to get people to run to the east, and then just when I'd see like someone get shot and drop to the ground, like I knew one person had been fatally shot because of where they were shot at, and then I was just trying to get as many people to go out the exit east as possible, while also making my way out that way too, not lingering in one spot too long. So I stopped and was just trying to wave people through the gate. There's about an 8 to 12 round burst that had smacked off the pavement about 5 feet, within 5 feet to my left, and just that sound, like I knew it was just bullets ricocheting off the ground. And that's when I knew like the rounds were getting closer, and I knew I had to get out of there. So I made my way behind this cover where there's a bunch of the outhouses located. Then I ran into a prior Army service member, and me and him had helped a few younger, like low 20s, like girls back there. One of them ran up to me and had been shot in the arm, so I was putting pressure on her arm, and then the other ones we got set down in as good of cover as we could. And then we were just trying to determine, like assess the situation on what we could do from there. After that, it still sounded like the rounds were getting closer and closer, and at this time I'm still thinking it's someone on the ground. And so me and the prior service member, everyone got their bearing together because they were absolutely terrified, which is an understandable reaction in this situation. And so we got them up and said, hey, you got to run right now, you got to come with us, you'll stay behind one of us and the other one will be behind you guys to make sure you get out of here. So we ran outside through that eastern exit, and we just didn't stop running until we were at the parking lot between the Tropicana and the Hooters. And then the girl who had gotten shot in the arm, got her loaded up into a truck so she could get taken to the hospital, helped a couple other people into the back of the truck who had been shot as well. Then I just kept making my way towards Hooters. My friend and his girlfriend, who were there at the concert with me, they were standing next to me, and once the first rounds had gone off, and then like he kind of realized it before me, and he grabbed his girlfriend. They tried grabbing my arm, but I just didn't really register with me, so I didn't go with them at the time. I just kind of stood there trying to see if I could figure out where it was coming from first, and then they got themselves out through a different route. But yeah, they left before me, and I didn't run into them until the end of the night. On the way back to the hotel, I was just remember like I didn't feel the need to run anymore, so that's how I kind of knew that the shooter was definitely on the west side, and I felt like the event was over at the location I was. So then ran into a girl who had been shot in the shoulder, and she was just in shock and panic, so I helped her get to a collection point at the Motel 6 next to the Hooters, and an EMT was there ready to help her out. And then I started walking back to Hooters so I could go locate my friends who I hadn't heard from yet. And there's an older gentleman who had been shot in the hip who was having trouble walking, and his wife was just trying to hold him up. So I helped him into the lobby of the Hooters Hotel and got him put down in a seat, but he was highly intoxicated, so I mean, I don't think he was really feeling too much of the pain at that point, but helped him and then got pressure onto his wound. As soon as the ambulances started showing up to Hooters, then I helped him up and get onto a stretcher outside. And that's when my friends had called me and said they're up in the room. And so I was gonna go check on them. I went upstairs, and just the elevator inside of Hooters was just covered in blood. It was just blood everywhere. So I figured someone else had gotten shot and just went up the elevator. So we kind of like were hoping we'd run into them to get them help. But after that, I got back into our room, realized my two friends were okay. And then I just went back downstairs and started like passing out water, seeing if there's anyone else I could help. I've never felt so helpless in my life is the word I'd want to put, just because, I mean, me having a background in the military with weapons and everything, like if I would have had a weapon on me, I would have felt like could have done a lot more. Because like I said, I assumed the shooter was on the ground, and with a weapon, I would have been like, okay, like I can assist in some way a lot better. But I mean, there was metal detectors and everything. Like, no one inside the concert grounds were having weapons. And so I felt just absolutely helpless there. I was like, there's nothing I can do besides just try and help the people who have been hit and help them escape. Because, I mean, there's really nothing to fight back when someone has an automatic weapon firing at you. So it definitely was the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And it didn't really, like, my adrenaline got going, and so didn't really hit until about, I finally fell asleep sometime early in the morning, Monday morning. And then when I woke up from about an hour of sleep is all I could get in, that's when it started to really set in on what had happened the night before. So the moment the shooting started, it felt like it lasted a long time, but I mean, of course, my adrenaline's going. It could have been, I would say, 5-6 minutes or so of just the firing. Like, once I had actually gotten back to around the Hooters and Tropicana parking lot, I didn't hear shooting going on anymore. So I mean, I was inside the concert grounds for the majority of the fire coming in. I would say I couldn't really like give you a time, just because, like I said, my adrenaline was going so much. I wasn't really focused on time at that point. I get trained on active shooter once a year, and so when I saw that gunfire was coming out the west, that's why immediately I didn't want to run out the east, because all I could think of, someone's on the west side shooting at us, getting everyone to run out the east side, and there's going to be either 1 or 2 or however many more people that are going to start firing and just bottleneck the crowd coming out of there and be able to cause a lot more casualties. So my biggest thing was not stand put, but try and locate where it's coming from as you're working your way towards an exit, while also trying to find somewhere that could provide cover if needed be. That was my first initial thought. That's why I just didn't instantly run forward or backwards or anything like that. I just wanted to kind of get a grasp on the situation. It didn't really like make me feel helpless or like terrified until those rounds had just smacked off the pavement within 5 feet of me. And that's when I realized, like, if I would have been standing a few feet to my left, I probably would have been killed. So, like, it was at that point where I kind of got a little more movement in my step and was like, okay, I seriously, like, the panic started setting in. I was like, I got to get out of here now. Like, this isn't a good situation at all. Like, this is very bad. I'm originally from Washington, so when I got back from the hotel, after I'd gone and checked on my friends and everything, and came back down to start like handing out waters and seeing if I could help anyone else, I made sure I called my dad, woke him up out of his sleep and said, hey, you're gonna see something on the news, just know that I'm okay. So of course they woke up and started watching the news and then realized that I was at that concert. And then I just, at the time, I said, hey, I'm gonna go try and see if I can help any other people out. I'll call you later when I could. So they just were happy to know that I was safe. We sat down with our commander, all the people out of my unit that were there, and it was nice to talk to the others and get their experiences on it, and just know that there was someone else there and like they could absolutely relate to how you were feeling and everything like that, because I mean they witnessed it too. So then just talking with my friends, like my close friends and things like that, has actually really helped me as well. I've actually only deployed one time, so of course I'm one of those defenders who've only deployed once. But I mean, I was in a Gulf state when I deployed, so we knew there's the possibility of it happening, but we were never under like actual direct fire there. But I just, being a defender, if I deployed somewhere, I'd kind of be expecting that to happen, and it wouldn't come as a shock. But just to see it happen at my home station when I had taken leave for this weekend to go down to the Strip and have a grand old time, and then just to see it happen here is kind of like, it blows my mind, honestly. Honestly, gives me a better like hope in America. Like, things are always so negative on the news, but then when tragedy strikes, you see how Americans respond to that, and it's a great thing to see how people will come together. It's just seeing it happen over a tragedy is not what you want to see, but at the same time, the support Americans have for each other is what makes this the best country in the world.
I was down there as a volunteer for one of the local usher security companies called BServe. I volunteered with them before, and what I didn't realize when I volunteered for this position was it was a 12-hour shift. So normally it's you usher people in, you sit them down, and then you get to sit down and watch the show. Well, this was 12 hours on your feet, and for the most part I was just like, okay, it's not bad. I was positioned with the VIPs, so it was the VIPs had their own gate, VIPs had their own suites, so it was just checking wristbands. I like country music. I didn't know any headliners, so as I read through the, I guess the selections for the last day, I was like, okay, it's gonna be country music for the rest of the night. Not bad. We get to dance and hang out, and for the most part, most of the other ushers knew most of the VIPs because the ushers and the VIPs had been there for the whole 3 days. So I was really the black sheep, just wandering around, meeting people, saying hi. And I volunteered to be the person that would put everybody on breaks, put everybody on lunch, and then so I was constantly moving, which was really nice. So we had gotten from lunch, and then after everyone was breaking for lunch, I was put on to put everybody on break for just their last break before the end of the night. So it was pretty much just 15-minute increments. And then I was supposed to get my break at the end of the night. And so I broke as in like give people breaks. I broke the ushers up front at the front gate, and then I was breaking everybody else behind the suites. So I gave first couple people their breaks, and then I was asked to give someone in the front a break. And then give her the break, and when I came back from that, I just put someone on break when I started talking to one of the other ushers, I was talking to some of the VIPs, and all of a sudden I heard fireworks. That's what it sounded like, little pings. That was the first round. And then the second round pinged off of one of the suites, and I was like, that sounds like BB gun fire. I don't know why anybody would have that. And then I saw a crowd, just a mass of people running through the gate right next to us, so running through the exit right next to us. And that was blockaded with canine cars and like fences. So they were just rushing to get out. I didn't understand, I didn't get why, but then it was more repetitive fire. And so I went into the suite that I was guarding, got inside, and I didn't realize that it was an active shooter, that anybody had gotten hurt until I got in there. I was hiding under a table, and someone was saying my wife got shot. And that was when I was like, okay, like everybody thought, I thought somebody was out on the green in the crowd shooting. I thought there was multiple shooters as well, so I was like, okay, everybody needs to stay down until we hear a long pause, and then I need to get these people out. The gate was closed, there's police behind there. It's like, these people need to get out of here as soon as possible. So they had closed the door to get out to the front side, to where the west side, to where the shooter was. And so I had opened the back door, and I had just said, as soon as I heard a pause, I was just like, everyone out. So people were freaking out, I was trying to calm them, I got them out. And then there was a group of people that was still left in the back corner surrounding someone who was injured. Tried getting them out, and they said, we're not leaving without her. So I'm like, okay, then we're going to go get help for you guys. Ran out of the suite, ran down towards the exit, and then I forgot what the suite number was, so I ran back to the suite, remembered the suite number, and then the round started again. And so the suites were 3-story metal buildings with metal scaffolds for a stairwell. And so I hid under the stairwell, and when I hid under the stairwell, I saw that there were that there were people hiding under there. And I was just like, so I hid down there, and I couldn't believe that people were hiding under there. I was just like, there are people running past you, get up and go. So when I waited for another pause, and I got those people out, and then there were people that were injured at the very front of the suite, and I was like, they're too close, I had to get them out as well. So first person was shot in the arm, got her out. I encouraged them to run towards the exit. And the second person was shot in the leg, so I went down to the front, started dragging her along, and then someone came down underneath the suite with us and said, I'm an off-duty police officer, you guys need to get out now. And I got the injured person and whoever was helping them out, and then I ran out behind them. And that's when it started to hit, like, oh my gosh, I'm being fired at. It's scary, so I ran for a little while, and then I just saw masses of other people running behind me, and I was just like, no, I gotta stop. I was wearing a blue We Serve shirt. Most of these people had seen this shirt. Most of them would have respected it as some kind of authority. So I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna run. So I stopped. I started walking back. I started just telling people, get behind, keep running down the road. There were 2 dirt lots where patrons would park, and then there was another road on the opposite side. So I just said, run down this mid road, get into the dirt lots, get to the other side. And so I just said, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then the patrons that got to their cars started leaving the dirt lots, and there were still people in the street. So I stayed in the street and started directing traffic, started trying to get people to the sidewalk, trying to just ensure that people weren't getting run over. And then as the night kept going, it just, I lost track of time. I just was directing cars. And then mobs started like forming of people who were trying to help injured people get into cars, and people who didn't know where their loved ones were, and so they were just trying to help the best they could. And so they were stopping cars, and they were putting people into the cars. I remember seeing a truck bed just filled with injured people. And so as they were piling people in, I was directing the cars out, and finally they stopped a car, and the driver was just freaking out. He couldn't speak a lick of English. He didn't understand what was going on, and what I eventually found out was that he was just an innocent bystander. He was just trying to get to work, and these people stopped him, put an unconscious girl in his car, and I was just asking, does anybody know where the hospital is? And nobody knew where the hospital was, and so they said, can you get him there? And I'm like, I don't know where the hospital is, but I know that people kept saying that there's a Red Cross down the street, so I'm like, okay, I'll get him there. So I got into the back seat of his car, directed him out. He wasn't really driving that safe, but I was just trying to direct him. Got him to one ambulance, and the ambulance was just trying to find. They were going to the MGM, and they were just trying to find people to help. There was an EMT there, so I had to pull out and go down the street a little bit more towards the Hooters Hotel. And he stopped at a fire truck in the middle of the street, and we both got out. And by that time, when I got out and I was trying to get an EMT, some of the other We Serve employees that I was working with found me. And so I got the EMT to the girl, and the last thing I heard as the We Serve employees were taking me away was, I don't feel pulse. By that time, I didn't have anything else to do, so I just started crying, and people were just leading me somewhere. We ended up getting to the top of a parking garage. We met up with more We Serve employees. Once I knew that everybody was that everybody was in a group, I said, I want to look at the rest of the parking garage. I walked off, made a round, came back, said nobody else was there, and we all went down the stairs. I guess they had gotten contacted that one of the We Serve supervisors, her husband had a truck, and he was just taking as many people as they possibly could. So when we got down there, it was already full, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to get on that because it's already full. I don't want to overfill it. And my irrational desire was to get back to my purse because it had everything in it. Had my phone, had my wallet, had contacts, people I could call. I was just like, I can't leave that until they're just like, the people who did know my name were like, Stephanie, get in. So I got in, squished in between some people, and we got out. We got as far away as the strip as we possibly could. Parked into a gas station on, I think, Sunset. And then people started calling their loved ones. People were lending me their phones. My parents weren't answering. They're an hour behind, and they're both, it was like 1 o'clock their time. So they were both asleep. So eventually I just told them I don't know what else I could do except go back to base. I thought about going to my uncle's house, but I couldn't contact the office. I couldn't do any of that. I didn't know anybody's numbers. So the thing is that I don't really remember it feeling. I just remember going into like, I need to get things done. I figured out what my go-to mode is whenever I'm under attack is close down feelings, get things done, and then once you don't have anything to do, in between the things that you have to do, then you can cry there. So it was more so like, what had happened, it was confusion at first, saw people running, and then it was just get people out. So there wasn't really any feelings, it was just get people out and then get yourself out. Yeah, there were many times where you could have just seen a lone person in the middle of the street, just across the way, just gone bang. Probably wouldn't have been able to hit me. I mean, he wasn't a sharpshooter, but he probably could have got a couple shots close. But no, looking back, I was just like, I didn't hear any shots after I got out of the venue, but that was just out of the gate and onto the street. I mean, there could have been more shots, but I didn't hear any of them. Yeah, I do. I look back on it and I'm just like, I'm happy that I got people out, but I never told anybody that there's someone in a suite with I think 6, 7 other family members. I didn't tell anybody that there was somebody injured in there, or that there were people there that needed to get out. But the thing was that it was just like I didn't see, as I was just traveling walking to the parking garage with the other We Serve employees, they had seen people get shot in the chest, people get shot in the head, people falling like flies, and they were the ones that had seen horrible things. I just saw injured people, and so it was just like, yeah, I was able to save some of the people that I found, but they were in the safest. I'm truly eternally grateful for that I was in the safest place I could have possibly been, but I wasn't in a position that I could have helped so many other people. Like, I'm just thinking about the other positions that I could have been in that night, and just being on the opposite side of those suites, even though I would have probably been in more danger, I could have probably helped a lot more people. I woke up the next morning, my alarm clock went off, and just when my alarm clock went off, the Skype call went off. So, turned it on, just try not to cry, and just like say, hi guys, and of course they're on the other side going, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I'm just like, I'm safe, I'm in my room, I'm not hurt, I'm not injured, I'm safe. And that's what I just kept saying until until they asked me a question, like, what happened? And I said, nah. The one thing I'll always remember was that it sounded like fireworks. It sounded like someone was just setting off firecrackers. That's the first thing I told them. Just like, it sounded like firecrackers. That was it. And eventually they just told me how many people had started reaching out. They saw my post. My sister, my second eldest sister, was the one that told them that they saw my post. My mom was just waking up and my dad was in the shower, and my dad had received a text from my sister saying, "Stephanie's safe, check Facebook." And he's like, "What?" He didn't understand, and he went into the shower because he was groggy and he didn't understand what was going on. And then my mom saw my Facebook post, and then she saw the news, and she's freaking out. She's going to my dad's room going, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" Yeah, and that was the most frightening thing for me, thinking throughout the night. Like, I can't contact my parents. I can't tell them I'm okay. They're going to start freaking out like hours from now, and I'm not going to be able to tell them anything. I was so happy I got that Skype call, because that was the most terrifying thing for other people, like, because they were in the line of fire. I was behind large metal buildings. I mean, I didn't exactly feel safe, but I didn't exactly feel like my life was on the line. So it sunk in that I was there. It feels weird that I was there. It sunk in that pretty much everything that I do now is kind of amplified, in that, like, I don't call my sisters for a couple of days, or I don't call my parents for a couple hours, and they're checking on me, and I'm just like, "I'm okay, guys. I'm okay." It's more so, it's just I've thought about it for such a long time, even though it's only been 4 days. I just haven't had a chance to really process the fact that, like, I was there. As I've been talking through this past couple of days, and just hearing other people's testimonies, and hearing Vegas just ask why did this happen, how did this happen, I'm just like, if you ever find yourself in this kind of situation, and your first reaction is to panic, don't curl up into a ball. Run. And if your first reaction is to help other people, get them and yourself safe. Because there are so many things that could have gone wrong, and there are so many other lives that could have been lost. And the lives that were lost is horrible. And just in the fact that I didn't see many of the people freeze, I saw a lot of people run. So, yeah, if you ever experience this, run or hide, but don't freeze, because that was when I heard that, like, people were freezing and curling up into balls. I was just like, no, I couldn't process that. I couldn't think about me ever doing that.
Well, let's talk about October 2017. What brought you to Vegas?
It was a post-deployment honeymoon retreat for my wife. We had just gotten married. I had just gotten back from a deployment a month prior, and actually been deployed for 7 months of a short marriage.
Wow.
So.
Now, describe the situation, the time, the setting, where you realized that something had gone wrong.
Initially, it was confusion, trying to figure out what was going on. But after we were able to the second round, we were able to identify that it was gunfire, and where it was coming from approximately, so we could take the appropriate actions, get some cover. And it was chaotic. There was a lot of people running around, not really knowing what to do. There wasn't much military experience of the people that were there, and of the military guys or military experienced guys. They were doing their best, but it was a fairly large concert. It was the last final act, of the 3-day festival. So it was pretty packed out there.
What was the first thing that instinctually you did?
First instinct that I had was to get down, make a smaller target until you could find out where to go and find where cover was. Knowing from my previous experiences with the Navy, I didn't want to move us to a position that was what I thought was covered, but turned out to be exposed from a different angle or something like that. So was able to quickly assess the situation and then find the appropriate cover where we could get enough people and get them under there until we could find a way to exit the arena.
At what point did you start to actually help other people?
Once I got so from the initial gunshots, it was my wife and a few other individuals that were with me. As soon as the gunfire started, I got them down and started to in my head start to count basically when the breaks in fire would be. When we got to a good break of fire, that's when I basically told everyone to get to cover. Me and my wife took some cover behind some tables, and it just at that point is when I noticed the lady get shot back out in the field, and instinctively I turned around, ran back out there and grabbed her, did initial first aid and brought her back and continued to do first aid, and then until we basically just decided that we needed to move, and from that point, I took my wife and a few other individuals that I've been helping with making sure tourniquets and bandages were in place. Started to move them back, bounding between cover from the gunfire, because at that point we had known that it was coming from this direction, so we knew where we had to be behind and what we had to protect ourselves from. After that, we moved into once we got out of the festival ground, we moved over to the walkway bridge to get back over to our hotel, into a building that we were familiar with. And once we started crossing that bridge, it was very exposed to the hotel that the gunfire was coming from. So myself and another service member from the UK actually started to move people off the bridge and make sure that the bridge was clear, that there was nobody in the line of fire. And then finally, once we got into the hotel, I started to work with the EMTs that were already there, that were part of the casino, and started to work with them to try and do initial shock treatments, and then basically make sure everyone's bandages, if they had bandages, were okay. And if they needed to get further first aid outside of what we could do there on the casino floor, get them to the hospital.
What was guiding you through all this? Were you balancing your safety, your wife's safety, the safety of strangers? What was motivating you to start an action, retreat sometimes, and take care of bandages?
A lot of it came from my previous command. I had been there for 5, almost 6 years, and it just kind of had been ingrained in me. I had done 4 deployments, multiple to the Middle East, so it's kind of was just trained to me that's what happens when gunfire comes down. You just spring in action. You don't really think. I wasn't really thinking about myself. Probably should have thought about my wife a little bit more, but was helping her out, making sure she was safe, because I knew it was a new situation for her. The first interaction she had with the military was me, and so she had no training like this, and I guess really it was just the Navy training I had received that kind of ingrained in me what to do when that stuff happens.
My first point was to get my family out of there. My immediate family was there with me, so I made sure to get them to safety, but then right after that I knew there were a lot of other people that needed help, so it wasn't even a thought. It was just, you need to start being an active duty security forces member, is you need to go to work and you need to start helping these people. But like I said, this is not about me. This is about the victims and the families who still have to suffer from this tragedy every day. So please remember 1 October, and please remember the 58 victims we lost that night.
Army Reserve soldier awarded for life-saving actions during deadly mass shooting. Army Reserve Sergeant James Lawson never imagined a country concert would end with him not only fighting for his life, but also saving the life of somebody else. Surrounded by the members of his unit on the Pacific Coast, the watercraft operator from the 481st Transportation Company, Heavy Boat, was awarded the Army Commendation Medal for his actions on that fateful night nearly 2 years ago. All of the training went to use that night, Lawson said. I had the mentality of no man left behind. Having the training and having that benefit to react quickly, it could have been life or death in that situation. Being in the Army Reserve may have saved my life that day. On October 1st, 2017, a gunman opened fire on concertgoers from an elevated casino window overlooking the packed outdoor concert area hosting the Harvest Music Festival in Las Vegas, Nevada. As one, the entire crowd entered a desperate panic, all intent on escaping the flurry of bullets raining down upon them. In the middle of the chaos, Lawson immediately went back to the basics. As I was running, all I could think of was, I'm up, he sees me, I'm down, said Lawson, referring to his Army movement technique training as he leveraged nearby obstacles for cover. We were there to have fun and weren't expecting any enemy fire, so it was all reaction at that point. As he continued to navigate the stampede, Lawson managed to escape the concert area with his fiancée to a parking lot where he noticed a large group gathered around a pickup truck. As he approached, he noticed a large pool of blood growing at the base of the tailgate, and a concertgoer struggling unsuccessfully to apply a tourniquet to a profusely bleeding gunshot wound in a man's calf. Lawson immediately set to work, applying a makeshift tourniquet with the man's belt and stopping the bleeding until he could be transported to a hospital. The man he saved, Tom McIntosh, described Lawson as calm under pressure and sure of his abilities. My wife was screaming, which was starting to make me panic a little, but James stayed calm and kept a dialogue going with me to keep me calm as well, McIntosh said. I started to panic, and I kept trying to sit up to see how bad my leg was, but James kept distracting me and was able to calm me down again. The Army Reserve focuses on a sustained training regimen for all soldiers to ensure both combat lethality and a constant state of preparedness for the unexpected. As part of this training, many soldiers take the Combat Lifesaver course, CLS, which is an immersive and high-stress scenario-based instruction that emphasizes quick action. The course empowers soldiers to provide fellow warriors with the necessary care needed to help them survive until trained medical personnel can take over. In a ceremony surrounded by his fellow soldiers, U.S. Army Captain Schuler Wellis awarded the Army Commendation Medal to Lawson and commented on his heroism. Sergeant Lawson's actions set the bar for how soldiers should act on and off duty, he said. He is an example of why keeping on top of CLS training is important, and he is an example of what we all strive to be like in the military. Sergeant Lawson has received extensive training over his 12 years in the U.S. Army Reserve, including 2 deployments to Kuwait as a watercraft operator transporting personnel and equipment throughout the Persian Gulf. His most recent tour had concluded only days before the shooting. He took military leave to attend the concert with his fiancée. The Chief of Army Reserve and Commanding General, United States Army Reserve Command, Lieutenant General Charles Luckey, became aware of Lawson's efforts during the awards process and wrote glowingly of his actions. Superb work under extraordinary pressure and stress, Luckey commented. Everything we honor as soldiers. McIntosh fully recovered and got to thank Lawson personally in the days following the incident, when the Today Show brought the 2 men together for a surprise reunion. Since then, McIntosh has gotten to know Lawson and has grown to understand the nature of his character. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that I would have died in that alley if he hadn't stopped to help me, McIntosh said. It takes a special person to willingly inject themselves into a situation like that. Now that I've gotten to know James, I know that's just the kind of guy that he is. Courage Under Fire, Hawaii's Marines' Reaction During Las Vegas Shooting. Following the Las Vegas concert shooting October 1st, 2017 that left 58 dead and 546 injured, stories of quick-minded courage and heroism continue to surface. Captain Derek Aptes, a pilot with Marine Light Attack Helicopter Squadron 367, spoke about his own experience and how he handled the tragic event during an interview October 18, 2017, at Marine Corps Base, Hawaii. "I went to Las Vegas with my girlfriend for the Route 91 Country Music Festival," Aptes said. "Jason Aldean was playing, and we heard two pops. Someone next to us made a joke, but in my head I thought, that actually sounded like gunfire. Several bursts of gunfire followed, one of them striking Aptes' girlfriend, while the couple was trying to escape. She was hit right above the knee," Aptes said. "It went through the upper portion of her thigh, so she was still able to move. In the ensuing panic, most of the crowd rushed to the main entrance. I grabbed my girlfriend and I told her we're going right," said Aptes. "She asked me why, and I told her because everyone else is going left. My thought process was to get away from the crowd at that point." Aptes and his girlfriend came to a small secondary exit and were able to leave the venue. Along the way, they encountered a woman who had been separated from her group of friends. "At the first fence we cleared, we ran into a girl who was hysterical," Aptes said. "She was screaming that she had lost her friends, so we grabbed her and brought her with us." Aptes and the two women climbed another fence in an attempt to escape the shooting, but ran into a locked warehouse property that stopped their progress. "At that point, we had crossed two pretty significant fences and covered a lot of ground," Aptes said. "So I was thinking we would probably be okay to go back the way we came. At that time, bullets cracked over the top of my head." Unable to breach the locked door and under fire, Aptes broke the glass panel with his shoulder, sustaining a deep cut on his forearm that would require stitches. They entered the building, and barricaded themselves in an interior room. "I put the girls in the corner of the room, and I pushed a table up against the door," Aptes said. "The girl we found at the fence was starting to calm down, which was very helpful because she was talking to my girlfriend and helping her calm down as well." The woman they met at the fence also happened to be a nurse, and she used her shirt as a makeshift bandage for Aptes' bleeding arm. Aptes waited in the room with the women for 10 minutes, then went into the street to see if he could gather more information. "First responders were already coming on scene," Aptes said. "The city buses started running back and forth from the hospital for the less critically wounded victims like my girlfriend, so we loaded up on a city transit bus with 20 or 30 other people." Aptes described the surreal experience of riding to the hospital with other victims and viewing their reactions to the traumatic event. "It was kind of a weird dynamic," Aptes said. "Everyone handles stress a little differently. Some people were kind of freaking out. Some people were laughing and joking, and some were just sitting quietly. It was pretty chaotic." Aptes' composure and quick thinking was owed to his overwhelming goal of getting his girlfriend to safety, he said. "My whole focus was to get my girlfriend out of there," Aptes said. "That was my whole mission at that point. I would describe it as hyper-focused. I was very calm. I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and I kept an open dialogue with her to keep her engaged. I was actually very surprised with how focused I was." Aptes humbly cited luck as the main reason for them escaping the situation, but his bearing, courage under fire, and decisiveness, strengthened by his role as a pilot and Marine Corps officer, carried a much more significant impact. Nevada Guard soldier, 17, recalls Vegas shooting. Nevada Army National Guard Private Jacqueline Trujillo grew familiar with the sound of rifle shots during Army basic combat training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma last summer. So when hundreds of shots rained down on the Route 91 Harvest Festival country music concert in Las Vegas on October 1st, Trujillo recognized the sound. "At first when the shots went off, everyone was curious. They thought it was fireworks or something wrong with the speakers," said Trujillo, 17, who immediately advised her two sisters, Isabella, 15, and Francesca, 13, to leave the concert. "The lady next to us thought it was fireworks. I told my sisters I didn't believe that. I told them to leave. I didn't want them to freak out or panic. We did it calmly. As we were approaching the exit, that's when everyone else started to realize that this wasn't fireworks or an issue with the speakers. Las Vegas Metro Police identified Stephen Paddock, 64, as the man who opened fire from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, killing 58 and injuring hundreds before taking his own life. Nevada Army Guard Sergeant First Class Charleston Hartfield, 34, of the 100th Quartermaster Company was among those killed. The concert was a present for Trujillo's graduation from basic combat training and marked her grandfather, Bill Henning's, 71st birthday. Moments before the shooting, Trujillo's father, Jamie Maxwell, along with Trujillo's mother, left for the family's hotel room on the 24th floor of the Mandalay Bay. After the shooting, he raced downstairs to find his family. People were dropping to take cover. Others dropped because they got hit, and some were falling because they were trampled, said Trujillo, a split-option soldier who completed basic combat training before her senior year at Arbor View High School in Las Vegas. Trujillo and her sisters found safety behind a wall, where they met fellow concertgoer Tammy Dean. "They saved me," Dean told KTNV 13 Action News reporter. "Trujillo really took care of us and kept us calm, and she kept me from doing something stupid like going inside looking for family. She's a hero, and I can't wait to see her grow up. I'm so blessed to have you as a friend. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that I have you in my life too." Trujillo, her sisters, and Dean left the area and were escorted by an off-duty officer off the strip. They went to her brother's house near the location of the concert, Trujillo said. They eventually reunited with their father. Their grandfather disappeared in the shooting, but found safety in the hotel. He spent the evening there during the hotel's lockdown. The entire family wasn't reunited until the following morning. "Right now, I think I'm handling the situation better than the rest of my family," Trujillo said. "My family is having a hard time sleeping right now. My family is dealing with it worse than I am. I am just thankful for training and to be able to know what to do in that situation." Trujillo is set to attend Military Occupational Specialty School next summer and become an aviation operations specialist with D Company, 3140th Security and Support Aviation. The unit flies and maintains the Nevada National Guard's 6 UH-72 Lakota aircraft. Trujillo said she wants to attend UNLV and become an officer. "In the short period of time I've known her, given she is so new to the force, I can say, based on assignments she's received as a young private, she's displayed an exceptional ability to execute them and shown a great deal of leadership doing it," said Sergeant First Class Victor Boyven, a Nevada Army Guard recruiting and retention sergeant. "She has a lot of potential. Her actions the night of the concert display that potential."
Initially, I thought the music messed up. I looked up at the music, and at that time, that's when the lights went out. We didn't really have to think about it. It was just, we got to get up there and help who we can. My name's Sergeant Michael Vera. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. My job is 6114, helicopter mechanic.
Corporal Austin Cox from Pickle, Ohio. 6114, helicopter mechanic as well.
I seen a headline for the festival, and I ended up looking at it, and I was like, wow, this is a good lineup. And knowing that I was getting out soon, transitioning, I had texted him like, hey, do you want to go to this festival? We just had got a few drinks, initial shots happened. Thought the music messed up and everything. Lights went out, lights came back on. It happened again. And at that time we realized what was going on. We made our way up there. The people were all getting trapped and barricaded on that side. We started helping people get over the barricade. We came across a guy that got hit in the chest. He was wounded in the chest. And we started helping him and told his significant other to keep pressure on his chest. And as we turned to go help others, that's when
Katrina Hanna, we seen her, she had a neck wound. We pulled her over the gate, started applying pressure to the neck. We noticed there was some more blood coming from somewhere else, so we scanned her whole body, found another wound on her back. At that point, that's when Sergeant Vera, he understood that I got the situation under control. He was going to help other people. So at that moment, I lost contact with Sergeant Vera.
I started making my way up around the stage more, and I came across another male that had got shot all on his right side, and he was bleeding real bad from his arms. I ended up taking his belt off and put a tourniquet on his arm, and then started making my way around the barricades that were on the right side and seeing who I could help and who was down and everything like that. Myself and another individual, we knocked a few of the barricades down to put people on to carry them out, and throughout that process we carried probably 5 to 6 injured people out, and then there was probably about 4 deceased bodies that got carried out the back by the House of Blues. When I went back in to help more, that's when the police and a SWAT team finally came in and kicked everyone out of that area.
I was with Katrina. Shots were being fired. I could hear them against the stage just to my left and to the barrier on my right. There was a pause. In that pause, I knew I just needed to pick her up and run for cover, so I did just that.
Right now, we need your truck. We just need to get people over to the hospital, okay?
Katrina being shot in the neck, we got one of the first vehicles. Hopped in with 2 young ladies, and they rushed us to the hospital. The last thing that Katrina really did was give me a thumbs up, which really let me know that I'm good to leave her side, and that kind of gave me some hope that she's going to be fighting, and she's a fighter.
I went to this country concert to get away from my real life problems and things like that, and it became the realest moment of my life. So at any point, something like this can happen.
Being a Marine 24/7, inside the wire, outside the wire, the people, they really do need Marines to help out in a situation like that. The Marine Corps teaches you, to give you a strong mind and to stay focused, and we were able to do that to continue to help people, and not lose our focus, for them. I think if we lost our focus and got scared, they would be even more scared. So.
I just wanted to help. It wasn't to get recognized or anything like that. It was just to help.
We're about breeding excellence and perfection. Professionals represent truly what it is to be selfless servants of this nation, not honor for heroism outside of combat. Rock.
You guys, man, family, my wife, daughter, thanks to everybody. You know, they're super proud of daughter, thanks to everybody. You know, they're super proud of us, so thank you.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out. To Gunny Manuel, Lieutenant Colonel Sykes, Master Gunners Bosch. Thank you, Stefan. Gunny. Fuji, thank you. Stefan, thank you. Master Gunners, thank you. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Stefan. Thank you. Congrats, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, boy. Thank you. Thank you. Congrats. Thank you. 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 Sergeant. Thank you. Thank you, Gunny. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Where are you? You going in one of these formations? What? Oh. Yes, sir. Ready to be decorated, all present.
Selfless actions saved lives and prevented serious bodily harm of innocent bystanders of the Marine Corps. The victim in a vehicle to the hospital for immediate medical care. Corporal Cox's quick thinking, exceptional bravery, and selfless.
Post! I would say congratulations, but that seems kind of underwhelming when you think about exactly what they did. Say congratulations, you kind of think something. The group commander reminded me a little while ago, you know a couple of folks that won this award? If you look at any time that somebody has achieved something great or has done something, it boils down to, again, good career, the unit that they grew up in, the leaders that they had, that put them in the right place at the right time, it's the character, who they are inside to do the right thing, and those 4 to 5 of all of your Marine Corps combat brothers and sisters, and our very few, and although it seems not the right word, congratulations to both of you for winning our nation's highest honor for heroism outside of combat.
Thank you, sir.
Ra. Well done. Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Well done.
Rain.
The day itself was, it was terrifying.
I recall looking at Sergeant Cox, and he was like, "Yo, we got to get up there and help." That's the first thing that he said.
A whole lot of emotions come from it, from the day it happened till today. It's just always, goes through my mind. I think about it weekly, daily, just.
There's a sense of pride that comes with receiving the award, but also it's not why I did what I did. I didn't do it because I wanted an award. I didn't do it to even be recognized. And that's what you should do. As just a decent human being, you should help if you can.
You never know how you're going to react in those situations, but definitely having Mike there with me made my decision to react so quickly, very easy.
I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. And then seeing that initial reaction from everyone around you, running away from it, and the first thing that he says, being my junior, yo, we gotta get up there. I'm like, all right, well, if he's going, I'm going. Him being there helped tremendously. And I'm glad that it happened to be my best friend. I don't know, it's just being instilled in you from the get-go. I mean, as soon as you step on them yellow footprints, that's just your whole mindset, I think, changes. And every day as a Marine, I think that you need to challenge yourself and find your purpose. And that day just happened to be, my purpose was to help others. And I think going back from the training from day one has just helped me get through all that event and everything.